Okay. So a brand guide is essentially a rule book that explains how your organization or business presents itself through its fonts, colors, tone of voice, etc. It ensures that your brand looks and feels the same, especially when you have different people working on customer service, marketing, design, and sales teams, which leads us into why they're so important. So brand guides are key for keeping your brand consistent across all business materials and branding. And it also helps you inject your corporate identity into every single material. There's something that every business should have to make sure that the brand doesn't change. And when your branding is consistent, it builds trust with your customers, and it helps your business communicate more effectively and professionally. So ultimately, if you want a successful brand, you need a brand guide. Oh my gosh, sorry. Okay. So there are a couple different ways that you can create a brand guide for your company. And today I'll be showing you an example that I made for a previous project. So, oh, sorry, we're on this page. So first you'll need to set up an 8.5 by 11 document, which is just standard size. And this will make it really easy for you to print it off if needed to have a copy at your desk. You can create your brand guide using the platform of your choice. I like to use InDesign, but Canva is a very great free alternative that would also work really great. You should have your logo files, color codes, and fonts handy to insert into your brand guide. And lastly, you should know your brand. It's important to understand just the message that you want to get across to your customers before you start this document. So now I'll show you what to include in your brand guide by using my template for the Pacific Whale Foundation as an example. So the first thing I would do is make a quick cover page. You can just put your logo on there and a table of contents, because it'll be helpful to refer to since there's quite a few components that go into this document. An introduction to the brand guide is nice to have. It just states the document's purpose and what it should be used for, reiterating the importance of consistency across all the platforms. And I'll just say that throughout this document, the wording doesn't have to be fancy at all. You can just keep it simple and easy for your team to follow and understand. Next, you'll want to identify your business's mission statement, vision, target audience, personality, and values. So these are the most important things you need to establish your brand identity because they tell the world what you stand for. Your mission statement will be about why your company exists, and your vision is about where you want your brand to go. Your vision can be as big or as small as you want. And then you'll describe who your customers are, why they need you. And if you've already done some market research, you can include any insights that you have here that could maybe help your team communicate more effectively to your customers. Next is your brand personality. For this, you can make a list of 3 to 5 adjectives that would best describe your brand. This will set the tone for both writing and design. And for example, some adjectives could be sophisticated, trendy, conservative, and so on. It can also be helpful to list some adjectives that your brand is not. And lastly, you can include your values that will make it easy for your team to stay on brand. And then to add on to your brand identity, you can also include some notes on your brand essence and tone of voice. This will be very helpful for your new employees, especially who are joining the team and getting familiar with your brand. It might seem a little repetitive to the last page, but it's really important to be specific. So it doesn't hurt to have more. And then if you need more examples on like how to write your tone of voice, brand essence, the Starbucks brand guide is a really great one to use for inspiration, and you can find that really easily online. Okay, so the main or preferred logo is crucial to identify here because this is the logo that you'll be using whenever possible on all your branding. The construction piece here to the right is helpful for designers or anyone working with your logo, just to have breaking down the different elements of your logo, which here is the signature and the symbol. Depending on your logo and the different material it has to be applied to, there might be multiple configurations that are acceptable to use. So for example, here we see our preferred logo, which is a vertically stacked logo, and a horizontal option. Sometimes your preferred logo won't work across all platforms, so it is helpful to have a couple different options, and it's also fine if you have more than just two. Next, we have our color palette, which is a very important component. You want to include your primary palette, which is usually the colors that are in your logo, and the secondary palette, which are complementary colors. And it's also common to include some lighter colors here that can be used for backgrounds on different branding material. So I'll show you how to find these numbers. If you're using InDesign, it's simple to find these because they're listed right when you click the selected color icon. So the CMYK colors on the far right here are used for print purposes. And then the RGB colors to the left and hex code highlighted are used for digital. To find the Pantone color match, you can enter these codes into a color converter website of your choice. I like to use rgb.to. That's a good one. Really easy to use. And then you just plug in all those numbers like you see them here. If you're using Canva, you have to do a little bit more work because the color code that appears is only the hex code highlighted here. So you can just enter this hex code into the color converter I just talked about to find the rest of the codes. It's smart to have different acceptable color variations listed here because there may be times where the background color, sorry, that's my coffee maker. There may be times when the background color causes some limitations and a need for an alternate color variation. So for example, here, the white transparent logo should be applied to any dark surfaces or backgrounds. And if you have multiple colors in your logo, you might have more than just 4 colors here. Okay, so when you're using your logo for print and digital use, there should be a minimum size set for how small your logo can be while still remaining legible. So the sizes will vary between print and digital since you'll be working between inches and pixels. So to determine the size for print, I like to print off a bunch of different sizes of logos on a piece of paper, and then I just take my ruler, measure the size of the smallest, most legible one, and then I just enter that in. It's usually about 1 inch for print. And then to find the minimum size for digital, you can use the ruler tool in InDesign or Canva, and it tells you how many pixels it is. Okay, so now fonts. Your corporate fonts are the ones used across all your branding and should be listed here. You can break them down between captions, body copy, subhead, headings, and then make it clear if you want copy to be, how do you want it to be aligned? So if it's right, left, centered, and then include the kerning and tracking, which is like the spacing between letters and lines. And this will maintain a consistent style when the font size changes. You can also put an example of what each of them looks like in a sentence or a phrase beside all the specifications. And these guidelines specifically are used for printed documents, but you can also make one. You can make a copy that will be used for digital material because there might be a couple changes. So here's where you show what clearly not to do with your logo so that it's crystal clear to your team. So here no stretching vertically or horizontally, no changing the color of your logo to something that wasn't approved on the previous slide, no altering the size of your symbol, no altering the placement of the symbol, and no placing the logo inside a container. Also, don't put your logo on any busy patterns or backgrounds. So these are all the most common ones. If you feel like you can think of more, you can put them here, but this just keeps it very clear for whoever's working with your logo so they know what not to do. Next, we have clear space. So it's important to distinguish a clear border around your logo that can't touch any text or imagery, just so it has some room to breathe and it doesn't feel like it's crammed up against barriers or sides. So to find how much clear space your logo needs, you take the letter in your logo with the highest height. So in this case, I took the lowercase L in whale, and then you put it all around the logo. You can put it in between too, just to make sure that it has enough space everywhere. So yes, that's clear space. Sorry, I got lost here. And then, so applications, here you can include what your logo can be applied to, such as uniforms, signage, vehicles, merch, and so on. So here we have photos of the uniform t-shirt in 3 different colors with multiple color variations on top. And it can also be helpful to show examples of how your branding is applied to stationery. So your letterhead template, envelopes, packing labels, business cards. And I also like to include how my logo is put on to websites and social media. And you can specify what kind of configuration and color should be used for each one. So there it is on the website and then the social media. And sometimes you'll just want to put your symbol in the social media icon because when it's that small, you might not be able to fit the whole logo or read it. And then lastly is imagery or your mood board. So these pages can include pictures, pictures you have from photo shoots, inspo pictures, royalty-free or licensed images that you've collected that convey that feeling that you want people to get when they interact with your brand. When it's your business, you have a natural instinct for what types of photos and illustrations are right for your brand. But this imagery section will just steer everyone else on your team in the right direction without you having to approve things every time. And if you don't have all the examples you want for your brand, you can find what feels right from bigger brands, because this will give your team a sense of what they should be aiming for, and it doesn't hurt to aim a little higher. Yeah, there's just some more images. And now I have just a couple tips and things to consider before creating your style guide. So the first tip is to keep it simple. You don't want important information in your brand guide to be competing with unnecessary colors and graphics. It may be tempting to decorate or brand your brand guide, but keeping it minimal with plenty of white space is always the way to go with this. You should also consider whether you want this document to be mainly used digitally or if it will be printed. Digital is much more common these days, just with people working virtually, and it's just so quick and easy to share with people. But if you are planning on printing your branded document, you should decide whether you want to make it into a bound booklet, stapled in a binder, so you don't cut off any important information. And along with this, you'll need to decide which orientation your document will be. And if your business is big on digital marketing and social media, you might want to include a section on like social media, your social media templates, email templates, banner ads, etc. And you can also include a page of icons if you have them that are specific to your business and brand. And then you'll want to keep your brand guide updated, because your brand guide will constantly be evolving, and it's important to keep this document updated so that your team can also stay up to date with the most current version of everything. With that being said, You can keep the editable file in a safe place so that you can easily go back and tweak things when needed. And yeah, now you're ready to create your own brand guide. So I'll open the floor to any questions you might have. If you want to get in touch, you can, or if you think of any more questions, you can send me an email at maddie@simpledesk.ca.